Hello chess friends and welcome to Jozarov chess channel and welcome back to the Julius Baer Generations Cup in 2024 that you can follow on chess.com. In the finals of this event we have again the amazing, the epic match, I would say again the expected finals between Alireza Firouzja and Magnus Carlsen. First, we're going to analyze one game. At the end of the video, I'm going to reveal the winner of this match. But although whoever loses this match, still this tournament is not over for him, because then he can again, of course, qualify through the losers bracket again, maybe and reach the grand final of this event. So this concept, I think, is really, really cool, because you can maybe play freely, lose a match, and then maybe you get again back into the event, and still you have opportunities to win the whole thing. So let's see now what happened. As I said, one game we're analyzing, and then I'm going to reveal you the winner of this match. The tempo of the games is of course 10 minutes on the clock plus 2 seconds increment per move. And in one game, in the first game they played, Alireza Firouzja opened with the move e4. Magnus' response was c6, the Caro-Kann, d4, d5, and now after move e5 we have the advanced variation, bishop to f5, and now we have the tall variation by Alireza Firouzja with some progressive ideas to play g4, hitting the bishop, and maybe even in some lines, if you're careless, of course, trap the bishop here on f5. Magnus continues now with the move c5, breaks now the small pawn chain here that Alireza built, d takes c5, knight to c6, and now Alireza pins simply the knight that's of course attacking now the weak pawn on e5. And even if you try something like this, still you can cover and everything is pretty solid. Then afterwards you can play knight to f3, control this one is weak, so not a good continuation, I would say here. So not such a dangerous continuation, I think, here for white. So that's why after bishop to b5, queen to c7 by Magnus, hitting now the weak pawn on e5 again, knight to f3, e6, and now bishop to e3. Here Alireza is holding so far the position. He's keeping now his extra pawn on c5, bishop to g4. Magnus pins the knight that's controlling, of course, the pawn on e5. We have now knight from b2 dd2 by Alireza, and now knight to h6. And what should you do here? If you take bishop takes h6, this is not such a good continuation, I would say, here for white. Seems tempting, but after g takes h6 and something like bishop to c6, black would simply continue like this. Still, this one is weak, this one is weak, and after knight to b3, I think in one moment black will simply pick up now the pawn. Has also great chances maybe to attack the position through the g file. The bishops are of course much better in this open battles. You can also of course try bishop to g7 going for this pawn. Queenside castling is an option, so I would say not the optimal way here for white to proceed in this position. So that's why after knight to h6, Alireza keeps it calm. Plays now c3, wants now to have a great grip on dark horse, wants to centralize now the bishop and then protect everything in the center of the board. Knight to f5 by Magnus, hitting now the bishop, and now comes this idea, bishop to d4. And I would say a pretty equal position, because white has an extra pawn, but the activity of black's pieces is much better now. Look at this knight on f5, very well placed, bishop here very active, bishop targeting this one. So black has so far a good compensation for the lost pawn in the opening stage. And when you put now this position into the database, only I see drawish games and only winning games by black. So it's, I think, a familiar line here for Magnus Carlsen. He probably is has a good knowledge what's going on now on the board. Has still of course great chances, although as we said, down the pawn here. Bishop to e7 by Magnus, queen to a4, kingside castling, and now bishop takes c6, b takes c6, and you see now slowly but surely the position gets more and more simplified. Still, Magnus has to get his pawn back somehow if he wants it to reach really a good position. And now the real fun starts. Here Alireza tries knight to h2, which has been played. I've seen also a beautiful game in the database in this particular position, and now Magnus, I would say, doesn't react correctly immediately. Here the best way for black to proceed is to play the move h5 to keep simply your bishop here protected on g4. And the issue for white is that you cannot play f3. F3 leads into complications because you get this one, bishop to h4, and then knight to g3. You can pick up, of course, the bishop, but you'll also lose the rook, and then the knight is getting back, and I'm not seeing here good continuation anymore here for white. So h5, I would say must move for Magnus Carlsen in order to keep equality, to keep him somehow in the game. But he played now a dangerous here instead of f3. He played now dangerous knight takes d4, and Alireza continues now, of course, with queen to d4. Has now still the control of these 2 pawns in the center of the board, and still the bishop is hanging. And now we have bishop to f5, and the issue here's now finally you see the bishop gets exposed. The bishop is now a simple object of white's attack, and here Alireza continues with g4, and now Magnus again makes a tricky line. Here again, in order to keep himself in the game, he has to play bishop to e4, allow even knight takes e4, and then after something like d takes e4 and maybe queen to e4, you could maybe pick up this one. Then with f6 you could go maybe for this pawn. Also, what you could try is, of course, to attack the position through the d file, fixing maybe the rook on d5. Also, you can use the b file as an attacking chance. The issue for white is here, I think, that you cannot castle anymore. It's very, very hard to castle queenside because the files are already open. If you castle kingside, you have already weakened the structure too much here in front of your king. And also, we have to mention the bishop is targeting the h4 pawn. This was the best continuation for Magnus to somehow keep a good position, but he, after move g4, played a risky counter attack with f6. Magnus found here a beautiful idea, I would say. The engine doesn't like it, but I really loved this choice here by Magnus Carlsen, especially in this faster time formats. Here Magnus Carlsen is spicing up the game till the end, because now look at this. After move f6, you have to now react with g takes f5, and now Magnus says, I have now a beautiful, beautiful pawn storm that's coming. And now look at this 4 very, very flexible mobile pawns that are storming in the center of the board. But after move queen to e3, I think the idea, as I said, by Magnus Carlsen was great, but the follow-up was not the optimal here. Here he should have played simply e takes f5. And now look at this pawn storm really makes sense. You have now 3 connected pawns that are rolling here, and after something like, I don't know, knight to f3, you play bishop to f6. White is better, but I guarantee you, I'm not sure how many of us would love to play this game from white perspective. Look at this, maybe e4 is coming, f4, similar stuff, maybe in some lines, if possible, d4. As I said, castling kingside, very risky. Castling queenside, also very risky. You are up a piece, but very, very tough position to play for sure, as I said, in this fast time formats. But after queen to e3 that Alireza played, Magnus played rook to f5, didn't connect further his pawns here. Very, very bad move, I would say, here by Magnus. And now finally queenside casting here by Alireza. Now the rook is also a little bit exposed, and now in order to make any attacks on the b file, you will lose extra time. You have to play again maybe with the rook, then with the rook, then again 5-6 tempi you need just in order to make some kind of an attack here on the b file. So rook to f5, very, very bad move here by Magnus. So Alireza has now much, much better position, but still he has to, of course, defend these attacking chances that Magnus will create. Now Magnus continues now with an attack on the f file. We have now the move f3, and now bishop to h4. So you see Magnus grabs now another pawn. We have now rook to g1, attacking now the g file. Alireza has also some great counter-attack chances on the g file. We have now queen to e7, knight to g4 here by Alireza, and now bishop to g5 by Magnus. Many pieces are lined up here on the dark square diagonal. The bishop is really, really a powerful piece here. We have now queen to e2, and here it doesn't make sense to pick up the knight. You can maybe try here to pick up this pawn on f3, but then you lose also a very important pawn in the center of the board, your pawn on e5, and with this open files here, with the g and the h file open, with the support of the knight that's attacking here the center of the board, with support of the queen, I think this would be already game over here for black. So that's why after queen to e2, Magnus kept it calm again, played now queen to c5, grabs another pawn. You see, Magnus is really a pawn grabber here. And now, believe me or not, Alireza Firouzja makes a huge blunder already in the game. Here, again, I'm pointing out white, if white plays the game correctly, is much, much better. But Alireza plays now the move king to b1. The issue about this move is that actually here Magnus can actually even get the piece back with the move h5. or the position would be pretty equal. After move h5, there are not many things that you can do. For instance, you try knight to f2, then look at this, queen to e3 is getting into the game, and there's simply no good way anymore to protect both of these pieces. Even if you try here knight to e5, then look at this, bishop to d2, queen to d2, the queen is now deflected from the defense of the knight, and again it would be game over. Maybe you can try here knight to g6 after move bishop to d2, but it leads into complications. This is now just a crazy stockfish line that I'm showing you now. Black will probably play bishop to e3, and then you pick up this one. Black is picking up this one, then a check is coming. Look at this crazy position. You're trying to trade off the queens, then white is getting this knight in between, still hits the rook, and now you play here a check. And I think after a couple more moves, black would be pretty much forced to play perpetuals and would reach, I think, the drawish position. You see, here Magnus had immediately the chance with the move h5 to spice up the game, because the knight doesn't have so many great squares, so Magnus would reach an equal position or would get the piece back, where again black should be much better. So here, instead of this move h5, unfortunately for Magnus, he played bishop to f4, which is not a good move, which gives Alireza now a great chance to play knight to b3. Now their bishop is not attacking anymore the knight. We have now queen to e7 by Magnus, knight to f2, and now c5. Again, look at this. Again, the engine evaluates this position as completely winning for white. The evaluation is +2 in white's favor. But look at this. If you're playing against Magnus, I'm not sure, and the pawns are storming like this to you, I'm not sure how many of us would love really to play this position. c5, very progressive now attack here by Magnus Carlsen. We have now the move c4. Bad move here by Alireza. He should have simply played knight to d3, again centralizing the knight. And then after something like c4, you have always the opportunity to grab the piece in between, and then maybe even trying to deliver checkmate, and then you reroute the knight, you play knight to d2, protect your pawn, and still white is much better. But Alireza played c4. You see, when you play against Magnus, many mistakes you probably make. c4, and now Magnus goes with a5, simply attacks now the position. We have now knight to a5, and now queen to a7. Now the files are open. Here the a file is open, the b file is open, and now Magnus sees at least some kind of a chance to make something in the position. We have now knight to b3, rook to a8, a3, queen to b6, and now Magnus attacks the b file, and Alireza connects now the king to the loose knight on b3, rook to b8. We have queen to c2, bishop to e3, now rook to g2. Alireza keeps it calm, keeps everything now glued together and compact. We have now e4 here by Magnus. Magnus is really tricky here. He's playing now every single attacking move, puts really enormous pressure here against Alireza Firouzja. And in order again to stay in the game here for white is again, I'm pointing out, much better, but you have to find really the optimal moves. Here Alireza should have played a simple knight to d1, because if you try here something like e takes f3, this wouldn't be good to you guys with this one. Rook takes g7, after king to g7, you play knight to e3, you attack the rook, and now look at this. When you move maybe the rook, you could lose also the pawn on h7. Or maybe you're trying here rook to f3, but it doesn't get any better, because after c takes d5, e takes d5, knight to e3, we grab now this one. This one is hanging, you're trying something like this. This one is coming into the game, so finally white would reach a much simplified position where the pieces are in good shape, where the pieces are having great activity, and I think white should be really winning here. But after move e4 here that Magnus played, Alireza tried knight to g4, and you see now the whole tactic that we saw previously with this sacrifice with rook takes g7 is not working anymore, because the knight is standing in the way of the rook. So as I said, knight to d1, very hard to find these types of moves where you have to retreat, where you get your pieces back. So here after knight to g4, Magnus simply took, and now after rook to h2, still I'm pointing out, look at the evaluation bar, white is better, but so hard to see now the best moves here in the positions. Here we have d takes c4, Magnus continues the attacking flow, and now Alireza makes the crucial blunder. Still the evaluation is +2 in white's favor, and Alireza has to play moves like knight to a5, for instance, is perfectly fine. Then after something like queen to b3, this would be then the best line here for Magnus, and then you play bishop to d4, and still white is better because of the extra rook, of course, and I think after a couple more moves, the game should be over. Or here, queen to c4, for instance, you can play, and I think here, queen to c4, for instance, in this position, you cannot play because of bishop to rook to f4, and now the queen has to step back from the defense of the knight. Very, very hard to defend this. Then this one is hanging. So in this scenario, black would be actually much, much better. So, but as I said, knight to a5 solves now all of your tactical problems in the game, and you attack the c4 pawn. So as I said, here Magnus should probably go into wild line with queen to b3. But what Alireza did, he played knight to a1, which is not a good continuation. Now Magnus has this beautiful opportunity, bishop to d4, and he has now enormous pressure against this weak pawn on b2. Alireza continues with rook to c1. We have now f2 by Magnus. Look at this. The pawn is rolling. Rook to b1, and now a promotion. The rook gets deflected now, and now after rook to f1, we have now queen takes h7. Seems so that maybe here black is losing the game, but Magnus calculated everything in a good way. Actually, this check is just a lousy check. You cannot do anything. You can have to now bring the queen back. You can maybe deliver one more check, but now then the knight, then the king is escaping towards the center of the board. And the good part is that the bishop is shielding any potential attacks on the d file. So you could get, as I said, a couple of checks, but when the king is maybe coming here, maybe to d8, you don't have good chances through the d file. So only the queen can deliver some checks, but nothing spectacular, because the queen doesn't have really good support at all here. So that's why after king to f7, here Alireza retreats, king to e7 now by Magnus. Magnus secures now the king on a good square, rook to e2. Alireza trying to do something here around the square e6, and now queen takes b2. Great tactical sequence, I would say, here by Magnus Carlsen, forcing now a fully endgame stage where he can attack now this both knights. Although, again, I look at this, the engine evaluates this position as much, much better again for black, and evaluates also this move as a bad move by Magnus Carlsen. But in any scenario, I would say we can agree black should be winning, because there are simply too many pawns, too many pass pawns. And you know, if there would be maybe two bishops on the board against this rook and this pawns, maybe white could hold this position. But the knights don't like when the pawns are stretched, when there's always a threat all over the board. So the knights are slow pieces. So that's why you see we have pawns on the g file, pawns on the c file, pawn also on the e file, and in any of these lines black should be winning. So as I said, instead of this rook to f4 move, Magnus should have played probably here c3, and then you push this pawn. You're trying something like this, and this pawn is marching, and in one moment white has to give up then the knight for a pawn, and black would continue then, of course, with the situation with up the exchange. Rook takes here, king takes b2, as we said, rook to f4, knight to a3, and now finally Magnus pushes the pawn further. Alireza pushes also the pawn. Magnus is pushing the pawn here, but Magnus can, of course, go close enough to the to this pawn. He can stop it, of course. And here after move a6, king to b6, Alireza is trying to battle, but now Magnus, of course, secures the move g2, in which Alireza has to now give up here, as I said, the knight for a pawn. And in this particular endgame, obviously, black is completely winning here. So, really a roller coaster. Really stunning attack here by Magnus Carlsen. As I said, in maybe slower time formats, Alireza would probably find the best moves. Probably even Magnus Carlsen would not spice up the game like this, sacrificing a piece and letting the pawns roll. But interesting chess for sure in this 10+2 games. Amazing stuff. When Magnus puts really so much pressure against you, you will crack in one moment for sure. Alireza, of course, great player in this faster time format, but you saw he missed many chances to win the game. And what happened actually now in this finals of the Julius Baer Generations Cup, in the second game, I think a reverse situation happened where Magnus Carlsen had a winning position and managed to lose the game. So you see also Magnus makes mistakes, and then the third game ended with a draw, and in the fourth game Magnus Carlsen won the game. So Magnus is the winner of this finals. But as I said, nothing is over. Alireza Firouzja can still get back maybe into the tournament by winning maybe the losers bracket. He will then play a couple more rounds, and then he can maybe meet again and have his revenge against Magnus Carlsen in the grand final of this amazing chess event. So, okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. Really interesting stuff in the French, pardon me, in the Caro-Kann defense. If you want to see some other beautiful games from this event, check out our coverage. Here are some games that we have analyzed before. And if you like this content, hit the subscribe button. See you soon with some more videos. And what do we say in the end? Chess is the best, of course.